Covenant Culture Podcast, episode 9.
I hardly have fingers left to
And
show.
What's the title of our episode, babe?
In-laws versus the Outlaws. That one needs a drum roll, please.
Hey, our producer Kevin said that's a bar. Baby.
Yeah, and I want my money. That also said.
In-laws versus Outlaws, which is really good timing because of holidays.
Yeah, it is. Tis the season again. Still
So
here.
you either going to your parents
Yeah.
and they're your spouse's outlaws, or you going to your spouses and they're your outlaws.
Maybe they're
or
all
in-laws.
Maybe in love.
So really, I love this title. This title was birthed in you for all of our premarital and marital things we do. And it was actually pretty profound because it's a true statement. Like, you know what I mean? You either got good in-laws,
It's true.
or for whatever reason, they become outlaws.
Yeah.
So we want to just talk about that today.
I'm like, did we make a mistake?
Because my in-laws listen to this podcast.
That's true, they do.
But
so be careful.
I still keep it a buck. Whatever stories we share are real.
Yeah.
They're not made up. So whatever examples we give in our personal marriage with my in-laws. I was just playing dad. For my in-laws, they're true stories. We don't know what parts we'll share, but we always do. But it's very important because family, right, is community.
Yeah.
So the best families have healthy in-law relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not just about me. It really is about the kids too. When there's bad blood, right, with in-laws, it affects the grandbabies.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So hopefully we can add some value, right? Talking about some small keys to affect that. But let's start with a verse. Is that cool?
Yeah.
So in Genesis, we talked about this in a couple podcast episodes ago about the purpose of marriage. And we talked about God creating Adam and Eve. And right after the wedding, God says this, Genesis 2:24. For this reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah.
What's this reason? Right? Like for this marriage reason.
Yeah. Yeah. For this reason, to allow the two to become one.
Yes.
He must separate them.
Yeah. He said
from family.
Yeah. For this covenant marriage reason.
Yeah.
A man shall leave his mother and father and what? Cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh.
Yeah.
So there is a departing as a man from my mother and father to become to you and attach to you so that we can become what God has called us to be.
Yeah.
And for you, which is every time we say this about my parents, right? I don't have any. So the beautiful part about, and I know this is almost an oxymoron, is that it wouldn't matter because your heart for people is beautiful. So I've never had a thought if I did have parents, what that relationship would be like. You know what I mean? So that's the beautiful part. Even though you can't experience in-laws, I know what it could have been because of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I do feel like I get the opportunity with obviously your brother. He's still an in-law.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So we stop at parents, but a lot of times parents aren't the issue. It could be siblings. It could be, right? You have so many cousins that were raised as your siblings.
It's true.
Thankfully, I don't have that, but we know a lot about that.
Yeah. So God set it up.
Yeah.
Here's covenant marriage. This reason, leave your mother and father, cling to your wife, you become one flesh. And it's bizarre because why would that verse be there? It almost doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so we talk about all the time that God put it as an insurance policy because he know in-laws were going to be a problem.
I know every time you say that, I'm like, but it's true. I mean, he knew what was coming. It's not like the funny part aside of that. It's two families becoming one, a man and a woman becoming one, but then you have both of their families that are joined together. If you are doing life closely and on purpose, then it's just, there's a lot of opinions, there are a lot of emotions, there are a lot of traditions, and it just depends on where you fall in between those things, whether this is an easy situation or not, which brings us to the holidays. That's why this was something we decided to talk about, because in our experience counseling couples, and it doesn't matter which couple, right? The wealthiest of couples to the healthiest of couples, to the couples that need the most work. Sometimes their family is the most supportive, right? The ones that need help, it's interesting. There have to be boundaries set, but there also should be a desire to have this freedom of love my kids, love my spouse, love us well. So
yeah. And and I don't think we touched base with this on the dating podcast, but you marry a family.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm clinging, I've left, I'm clinging, but guess what? I still have to come in your circle of family.
Yeah.
And at times you've come into my circle of family. So there's this still sense of navigating a space to where our marriage is a light to our families. Our marriage is a picture to our families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that, I want my relationship with your parents to be awesome. Number one, because that's a mandate as a believer. Right. We're called to walk in love.
Right.
We're called to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So that's the foundation.
Yeah.
But how do I put in work to make sure I have a healthy in-law relationship?
Yeah.
Because I don't want any beef between my in-laws, because I know that's going to affect my babies.
Yeah.
And for me, and in our particular situation, I can't speak for everybody. These are my kids' only set of grandparents.
Yeah.
So why would I allow anything to hinder that?
Yeah. Just like you take them to their grandparents and they have too much sugar. Those things at the end of the day really don't move us.
Yeah.
To some couples, that's extremely important. To us, it's at the end of the day, these are your grandparents. We want you to have a great relationship with them. And a part of that is they're going to take you for ice cream in the same day and the same hour, give you a handful of candy out of their pantry.
It's
that's
true.
just a part
Shirley,
of
stop it. Shirley, stop it.
She's great at it. But those are pieces that really make grandparenting a thing.
Yeah.
Special.
That's good.
You know, so all the memories of baking together and cooking together, and they're going to eat the cookie dough. That's just what's going to happen. So if you can decide before, especially if you're listening to this and you don't have kids, what you want maybe you're not a couple yet. Maybe you are single and you're listening to this, just determining what you want for your family and making sure it matches. You're not going to be able to figure it all out before. But if you have a good portion of that, like this is what it is, that'll make it easier. Yeah.
And so even in the dating stage, like the serious, maybe you're engaged, don't wait to have these conversations, right? You should, in my opinion, been around each other's families. Like done one-on-ones with dad, one-on-ones with mom, right? Like get to know their personalities and makeup. That'll give you an end to how to navigate the space. You know what I mean? And the cool part about that is we're talking longevity. So what you do now help builds longevity in the relationship for your marriage. So let's just give a few keys about building healthy in-law relationships.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop. Number one, communicate authentically. I remember early in my marriage, really having to have tough conversations with my father-in-law.
Yeah, it wasn't nice.
But I knew as tough as it was, it was necessary. Number one, because I respect him. Number two, I earnestly look up to my father-in-law. And number three, he's a good man. So I didn't want, that was the core of who he was. So I knew if I wanted to build with him, these tough conversations had to happen. And I was always, for me, authentic in how I felt about situations, or made sure I communicated clearly about the situations.
Yeah.
And so he's a smart man. He's good with cars. I've had my own beaters growing up, so I knew how to fix my brakes and that. So anytime we would come together in his garage, which is awesome, he would kind of coach me through it.
Yeah.
And not that I didn't know, but I felt in a sense of honor to let him teach me, but also let him know like, yo, B, I'm marrying your daughter. I got some skills. You know what I mean? But I wanted to always be authentic in you got
like
skills.
This is like some man guard you just had to say.
You know, I had to stick my chest out. You know what I mean? I know how to change some brakes too. Stand, you know what I'm saying?
Need to teach you a few things.
You know what I mean?
And that's fine. We still welcome it. We need that. It's
I agree.
cheaper than paying for it, right?
But the man in me still know I got some skills too. That's all I'm saying, Stan.
Okay.
But communicating authentically. If there was ever an issue, and we did have some like early with our kids. Prime example, the candy thing, right? Like I wasn't a big candy dude, right? But once you told me these are their grandparents, this is what grandparents do.
Yeah.
Then I had to lower my shields. Like, all right, you right. They only gonna be here 2 days. Let them snack
if they
up.
Puke in the middle of the night. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, because I'm sending them the dentist bill anyway, so it doesn't even matter. No, but I remember having those conversations, and I always wanted to do it in a way that was loving, that was never disrespectful, right? Like I believe they know my character. I know their character, but there were some things that still need to be communicated. Yeah. So communicating authentically.
Yeah. And then for each other in order to have the conversation that it's not just something you're dealing with, that I can speak on your behalf and protect you in that way too. Which for us was just, I remember really early on, it was my parents, we were broke. And they were so kind. They would come and buy us groceries, and then you would come home and you would wonder how we got all the groceries and no one talked about it. I was fine with it because we needed groceries. And it wasn't the point that you were too prideful to receive it. It was just you wanted to have that conversation as a man. For me, I was like, that's my dad. That's what he's always done. Of course, he's going to do it for both of us if he did it for me. Right. But that was one of the examples that I think of just because it was a conversation that the two of you had, which just really set a good, healthy foundation for more communication in the future. Yeah.
And it just triggered a thought of maybe you in a family where they've held traditions for a long time. And now you're married into the family. And maybe you need to communicate something that there's something you want to do for your family. Like if that's you, just find a space where you can take your in-laws out and say, hey, man, I know you guys done this for 50 years, 60, whatever it might be. Now that we're married, I think my wife and I want to try and do ABC. Yeah. Right. It don't have to be like this tug of war where we ain't coming. Yeah. You know,
it's more of how you communicate it. It's the same in relationship. It's the same in any relationship, whether romantic or not. Yeah. If you say it one way, they can receive it a certain way. If you say it a different way, they can receive it a different way. Yeah. If you come in an honoring, loving way, if they're going to be offended by that, that's their decision. Yeah. But if you come in the correct way, then you just have to know you're doing the right thing on behalf of your family. And then it's out of your hands. The response is not your responsibility. Yeah. That's theirs. Yeah. But you coming and communicating in love is the healthy decision to make and the right decision for your family.
Yeah. So don't not say nothing.
Do not
say anything. I think we talked about this before. I said it before. Do not say anything. So if there's pent up stuff like, man, we've been married 3 years and we still, no. Relax. Say, hey, Dad, can I take you to lunch? Go to lunch. Communicate in love. Communicate authentically. And then let the chips fall where they're made. Like, there's no point of having pent up emotions because every time you're in their presence, it builds resentment. And you don't want that.
Yeah, it's like a communication sandwich. You start with a soft piece of bread. I'm like, I am hungry also. And then you end with a soft piece of bread. It's kind, it's loving, it's honoring. And then in the middle is all the rest. You smash it all together and say the hard topics when you need to, but you start out in a certain way and you end in a certain way.
That's good.
The goal of this conversation is because I want us to have a healthy relationship and I want our families just to love one another,
Yeah.
right? Even though it's maybe mom and dad or in-law, mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Either way, it's my family and it's your family. And we want
Yeah.
our families to do life together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then a second piece to that, this triggered a thought too of between each other communicate.
Yeah.
Right. So y'all should be on one mind and one accord
Right.
before the conversation.
Right. Which hopefully happens before you're in this situation.
Right.
That's
That's
what I
the
was
goal
saying earlier. Right.
Yeah.
And then number 2 is that the word is always right.
The Bible's always right.
It's always right.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, there's not a whole lot of fine lines or a whole lot of conversation. If this is what the word says to do, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
If this is hard on our marriage, if this is hurting us because of decisions they're making, then we know we go right back to that Genesis scripture.
Yeah.
Leave and cleave. If this is what your mission is together, then you have to figure that out together. It's your marriage first, right? And just recognizing if this is maybe one of our players. I use this all the time, so shout out to you, know who you are. But one of our players always would go on a hunting trip every year with his family. And when we were doing their premarital, she was like, soon to be wife was like, I don't know if I want that though. Like, it's not always the best situation that they find themselves in. And we're like, well, this is your new marriage. This is your family. You have to decide what's right for your family and make sure that it works and that it is honoring to God and it's pleasing to one another. So those are the times you just have to find each other in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And maybe you're believers and you're listening, but your in-laws aren't.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't understand the word. Right. That's a great opportunity. And we say this all the time, to always lead with agape.
Yeah.
So they might not agree with the Bible, but your love, your character, I mean, that's the most important. So that conversation might have to be a little more lighter, a little more airy, a little more loving.
But it also is more of a reason that you stick to the word, the Bible is always right. Because if they don't understand, you can't expect them to have the same filter or process or anything that you do if it's not filtered by the word, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you stand. You become immovable from that place. It doesn't mean you don't want to talk about it. It doesn't mean you're not going to do it with love and care. But I mean, we have another player, oh gosh, that was a crazy situation where mama would not stay out. And I mean, beyond anything you probably are thinking, to the point where she even called Lamoris to say like, hey, this is how it is. This is what it is. I know you've been counseling my son. I know you and your wife have been counseling my son and his future wife. And we're like, well, that's what the Bible says. Yeah. Right. So that's just where we land.
Yeah.
So you have to determine for you, where do you land?
Yeah. And that, once again, is an agreement.
Yeah.
We have decided that we're going to anchor our family on the word of God.
Yeah.
So whatever it says in the Bible, that's how we're going to live.
Yeah.
And how we articulate that lifestyle, especially in an in-law relationship, we always want to lead with love. They might not agree. I'm so grateful my in-laws are believers. Yeah. So if I come from that standpoint, it's almost a given. Like they recognize it, they know it. They might necessarily agree. And in 15 years of marriage,
there's like, we haven't had that, so that's good.
What I was about to say, in 15 years of marriage, there's never been an argument that this year we're going to my parents, next year we're going to your parents.
Well, I don't love that.
You know what I mean? I know, I'm just saying.
No, you always say that, and I don't love that.
I know.
I wish there were. There had to be that.
So it's been a blessing for my kids that every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they're with their grandparents, right? And it's fun. It's not like a burden.
Right.
Like, oh, we going to the Petties.
No, you almost like it more than I do.
It's
sometimes.
true. It's true. Because I get my greatest naps in Indiana on a Sunday.
That's true.
12 acres of land, no buildings, cornfields. You feel me? I'm out. Sun beaming through the wind. I'm out of there, though.
Okay, number 3. I'm going to reel it back in.
No, we still on number 2.
Thinking about that
number 2. We ain't done yet.
No, we're not. What else do you have to say?
What was number 2 again?
The word. It's always right.
Yeah, still
I think we landed
I know. I have one more thing. I have one more thing. And it's the principle that whatever you compromise to keep, you will ultimately lose. So the reason why you want to communicate authentically, the reason why you want to stand on the word, because if you don't, you ended up losing that relationship, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do it because of
Yeah.
they're my parents. Or if it's your parents that needs to be communicated, you got to understand that it is the word first. Like, mom, dad, this ain't personal. I love you.
Yeah.
You've raised me. You've done everything. But now I'm married. So now my husband actually gets a say.
Yeah.
My wife actually get a say in that. So
it's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Number 3.
Always honor them.
Yeah. Honor them. And that is, we have not been leaving challenges, but we did last week too, didn't you?
I don't remember.
Last week? It was one of the weeks. Leaving the challenge of honor them. So maybe you're listening to this, watching this, and you are struggling with this in-law situation, outlaw, if you will.
Yeah.
Do something. Sow a seed to make that better, right? Head it in the different direction, especially if you're going for Thanksgiving. If you're going for Thanksgiving and you wish you were going to your families, then do something that you would do for your parents.
Yeah.
Bring them
flowers.
A bunch of flowers, right? Bring them
bullets.
A turkey. I was gonna say, I feel like they have it. Anyway, why bullets?
Because my father-in-law hunts.
Do not bring them bullets.
Bring a case of bullets.
I feel like that's gonna go opposite.
This is a cultural thing. White men like to hunt.
No, I think you should
so
not
I'm gonna hook
bullets.
my father-in-law with some bullets.
Really show an opposite sign of aggression. Anyway, do something that you would do for yours, right?
Yeah.
Even maybe above that, because the point is, this is getting something out of your heart that needs to be cleansed and changed, and removing something to create something better.
Yeah. And you can never, ever err with honor.
Yeah.
So let's say there has been beef over the years, or there's been disagreements with your in-laws. Do something to honor them.
Yeah.
Because love always wins out. So it might be finding out their favorite restaurant, getting them a gift card, their
spa
favorite
day.
movie. Yeah. Oh yeah. Spa day. Just through conversation. And believe me, your spouse knows what their parents like.
Yeah.
So have some conversations, be willing to sacrifice to say, all right, honey, let's take this $50 and let's do something for your mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's take
important.
this $50, do something for your dad.
Yeah.
So you can never err with honor.
Because that's also a way that you love one another. To love your spouse is to love their people. I mean, it's just true. I don't know why it's their people. It's Avatar. But that's how you love, is because I love you, even though this might be a difficult situation for me, if this were roles reversed, that would be hurtful, that you're not loving my parents the way I need you to, right?
Yeah.
And even if they are in a place that is not, they don't have the filter of being a Jesus follower, even if that's the case, you can still love them. You can still honor them for the position they are. Maybe neither one of you agree. Yeah. It doesn't change that your job to them is to be light and love and truth and everything they need to see in you to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah. And it's a blessing attached, right?
Yeah.
Very clear.
It's true.
Those who honor their mother and father shall live long on the earth. And so for me, I've adopted my in-laws as parents. Yeah. So I get the double-sided principle. I get to honor them as in-laws, and I get to honor them as parents. So it's like a double blessing. And I think I mean, truthfully,
did you make that up? A double blessing?
No, man. But truthfully,
I didn't get a double blessing. I'm gonna love my in-laws better too. I want a double blessing also.
But truthfully, I'm so big on the relationship with my kids and their grandparents that I refuse to let anything hinder that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine, whatever it might be, that I wouldn't be humble enough to fix an issue so that my kids can experience the life of their grandparents.
Yeah, it's true.
For that principle alone, let alone what the Bible says about honor, let alone what it means to love. The very fact that my kids can experience grandparents in a unique way, I wouldn't let anything hinder that.
Yeah.
That might be the challenge for those who are listening. Maybe you've been at odds with your parents or your spouse's parents, and you have children. I really want you to think about that relationship. And this gets me, honestly. I'm gonna be 100. This is what gets me. I remember growing up, and I'll share my story here, but what gets me is locker room talk. locker room talk. When I was on the bus I played basketball, high school and college. When I was on the bus and people start talking about their dads. I'm in the locker room, people talking about their dads. Right. And when people would share their story, it was so much pain that I promised that I would be present. Yeah. So when I think of my kids, this is what I think about. What are Kai's locker room talks? When people bring up their father or their grandparents, are they going to say, yeah, well, I've never met my dad. Yeah. Well, my granddad, I don't know what he did. Right. So those, when I think of Easton locker room, my girls locker room, like what are the locker room talks? Yeah, it's good. That little seed makes me fight for a better relationship. That's right. Good. Even my brother-in-law is watching this, right? Like, why do you always do that with your face? Oh no, because I just think about proving everything. I just think about dunking on them. No, that's the dunk on them face. They all play basketball except one. That's true. You love them. But you guys have a great relationship. Yeah. So even them, I want those relationships, right? Why? They have boys that are my boy's age. They got girls. One girl that's my daughter's age. Why wouldn't I fight if there's, listen, I have no beef with my brother-in-laws. We all cool. They'll do anything for me. I'll do anything for them. Yeah. But if there was something, I would have to fight to be humble to fix it for the kids. Yeah. It ain't about us. Yeah. It's about them. It's true. We want those locker room stories to be like, man, my cousin back in Indiana, he can ball. Yeah. My cousin back in Indiana, 4.0. Like, you know what I mean? Like those conversations is worth fighting for. It's true. It's the same with sister-in-laws because I have 3 older brothers, as you've shared. So obviously that means I have 3 sister-in-laws, which are all very different. All 3 of them, aren't they? They're completely different women. And so for me, of course, being so close to my brothers, you have to figure out what this new closeness looks like when someone's there, right? But I've loved that because the truth is you have to be confident in who God has created you to be to even step into that role. To be like, this is who I am. Yeah. I'm going to meet you where you are, and our minds might think differently. Our personalities might be entirely different, but that doesn't mean that we can't meet each other somewhere. You find each other somewhere, right? And thank God for all 3 of them, it is Jesus. Yeah. I mean, that makes it much easier. Absolutely. But even with that set aside, right? It's hard to set Jesus aside, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Even on another note, it's finding places to be excited to see them, to celebrate them, to love on them. Yeah. And that's it's a choice. Yeah. Everything, I was thinking about this, and I feel like the name of our podcast should actually be The Choice, but it's a movie, so it's already taken. But everything we talk about is choosing. It is. It's choosing this. It's choosing to be thankful. It's choosing to meet them in a place. It's choosing agape love. It's choosing, what are the other things we've talked about? Oh man, we talked purpose. Choosing to live on purpose, right? Yeah. Every single one of them, a choice starts first. Yeah. Yeah. So what's your choice? Good. I choose to love my in-laws. And me. Of course I love you, but we talking about in-laws. I always just give you a quick test. So I don't have outlaws. I got in-laws. You feel me? Because we've worked at it. Yeah. And I love my father-in-law. There's nothing we can't. We've talked about everything from politics to religion to finances to purpose to calling. Like, our relationship is awesome. Yeah. So, but it's work and it's worth it. Yeah. So again, 'tis the season. 'Tis the season. Be grateful. Yo. We love y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. What a fun ending to episode 8. 9. I knew I might do that. I mean, we're really getting up there. We are. We pumping them out. So thank y'all for tuning in. We love y'all. Thanks for all the support, all the shares, all the likes, all the subscribing stuff. We're grateful for you. Yeah. See you next time. Peace. Oh. Handshake. I'll never forget. Hey. Bye. Peace.